Hi, I'm Bill Arnold. Thank you for listening to this podcast of Real Recovery. There are many more podcasts available at myfaithradio.com. Your support makes this possible. Thank you. Welcome to Real Recovery. Bill and George. Here we are, George. Listen to that snappy music. Just gets me in the mood, doesn't it?
Surf's up.
Surf is up. We've got a great show tonight. Chris is going to join the program in just a little bit. If you are in a place where you need to break an addiction, you've come to the right place.
Totally.
Yeah. And why have they come to the right place?
Well, it's God drawing you. What's interesting to me, all the guys we've worked with over the years, nobody gets sober unless God does it. A lot of people don't give him credit. They take credit for it. But it doesn't happen without God. And the reason is we like using too much.
And if you have addiction as a regular habit, it's going to be a hard one to break unless there's divine intervention.
Totally. And God uses the Department of Corrections quite often. It happened with me. Thank you in hindsight. But it works so well for a while. You think you found your solution. Our good friend Glenn R. always talks about anything you put ahead of God, you're going to lose. And we find that to be true.
Yeah. At Real Recovery, we always like to cover one step of the 12 steps. Today, we want to talk about step 1, where you are admitting you are powerless. And George, it takes a lot of courage, or does it take brokenness, or does it take desperation? What exactly does it take to get to a point where you say, game over?
Well, that's a really good question. And obviously, it's different for everyone. But you talk a lot about surrender. And I always love the part in the Blue Recovery book where it says we were beaten into a state of reasonableness. Do you remember when you were a little kid and you're wrestling with maybe an older brother or a kid in the neighborhood, and you'd say, "Uncle,"
oh yeah,
when it was over?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what happens here. And you realize you come to the end of yourself, which really should happen years before. The Bible talks about, apart from me, you can do nothing, but we really don't get that. And we think we're doing really well. And then something happens and, who are you going to call? Where are you going to go? And God does show up and he convicts you, but at the same time offers you hope. And what step 1 is, and when I work with my guys, most of us, when we get into recovery, think, well, I'm a pretty good guy except for my drinking. That was me. Pretty honest guy. Pretty good guy, pretty misunderstood. I told my roommate when I was going into treatment, I'm an honest guy, whatever you say. And if anybody calls for me, I'm out of town for business, for a month. And that convicted me. I've told that story on the show before, walking in. And that was kind of the start of it eroding. It took many more years before I finally stayed with it. But most people, it happens in stages to them. And what happens a lot is they find God and get sober for a while and get all their things back in their relationships and all their toys and their jobs and get off probation. And then the enemy speaks to them. This would be even better if you had a few drinks. You can handle it now. You're different.
Whoa. Boy, is that a lie?
It is a lie.
Yeah.
And that goes, so the gift we have was step 1. Tell me, what do you have power over? If God's sovereign, which he is, the big blue book even talks about that nothing happens in this world that God doesn't allow. My next breath comes at the mercy of an all-sovereign God. So does yours. And that's humbling that we're not calling the shots. There's a lot of things that seem right to us that end up killing us. The Proverbs, it talks about there's a way that seems right to man that ends in death. For me, that's a great recovery verse.
George, in step 1, when you realize your life has become unmanageable, doesn't it make a whole lot of sense to start finding a support group, a support system that understands what you're going through?
No, I don't need any help. I'm doing great on my own.
Here you go.
And that's the delusion, Bill.
Yeah.
I'm doing just fine. I drink too much and I shouldn't do coke, but making good money, so I do it. And
you're functional, right?
Keeping the job. The job's the last thing to go usually because you need the money to buy the drugs. You can get a new family. You can, get new friends, but the job you need. And a lot of us get in because we lose our driver's license for the second time. And you go, hey, maybe this isn't working. But the Holy Spirit is working on you to break through that delusion, this magical thinking we have that our best friend is our drugs, and without it, we can't live. It's our solution, and it's very powerful because you don't know you're that deluded until you get sober. So what really I think happens is there's a process here, and as you talk about all the time, first step, I can't do it. Step two, he can. 3, I'm going to let him. Where you finally break down, usually different for everybody, but same characteristic, you realize this isn't going to work. And maybe you want to die and you hate yourself, and God comes and offers you a lifeline, and you become willing to get out of the decision-making business. One of the things that I think is really tragic about the recovery movement, and there's so many good things. God created it. Nobody gets sober without God, but God as you understand him. And really what that happens to be, Bill, is usually a creation of ourselves. Well, my God wouldn't do that. My God is okay with that. My God is loving and understanding. There really aren't any rules. And if you're like that, take an honest look at yourself. Does your God look like you? Because usually it's an extension of ourselves. And what the Bible tells me is we're created in the image of God, not God created in the image of me. And it took me a long time to learn that.
If God can't contradict your will, you don't have a God.
Right. Because the God's you.
Right. And if God shows up and says you need to do something different than what you're doing, and you go, I'm not doing that, then you don't have a God. You are your own God. And that's disaster.
You said something a long time ago when we were first doing the show, and I've been sober a long time and been a Christian a long time. And you said to me, I need a God that says no to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that's it. That really is the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
We're out of the decision-making business.
And George, acceptance is much easier said than done, isn't it? When it comes to step one.
Well, I think for most of us, it's a forced acceptance, kind of like crying uncle.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done doing that now. Help me back up. And one of my favorite visuals of 12-step recovery is there's a man in a pit, and there's a ladder next to him, and he's yelling for help. And this guy comes over and looks down. He goes, you need some help? And he goes, yeah. Can you get me out of here? He goes, no, but I'll come down and walk the steps with you to get you out. Mm. And that's pretty meaningful to me in that everybody you meet who's helping other people get sober had to do their own recovery too. If you're a Christian, you're in recovery, and your life should be different. And one of the things that we get to do is God picks us up, dusts us off, forgives us, and says, I got a job for you to do. And I think tonight in the story, we're going to hear, or part of the excitement of his recovery is the future possibility of doing that. There's nothing more honorable than working for the creator of the universe.
Mm-hmm. And when you are continuing to use, despite what you know to be negative consequences, you are in the grips of addiction.
Well, you don't know, and you lost your will. You don't have a power of choice. For me, one of the best definitions of addiction is losing the power of choice. And you need to stop long enough to where you get that back. And still, Bill, most people don't make it.
Mm-hmm. So, George, what's a word for someone today that needs to break the cycle of insanity that they're in?
You're asking me?
Well, yeah, 40 years of sobriety. Let's.
The insane thoughts are still there, and we need to bend a knee every day. Get on your knees and pray to God.
I love that.
Ask him to help you. And the funny thing is, we have a God that wants our prayers and wants our praise. And he will help you if asked.
Well, I like it. All right, we've got Chris coming up on the show today. And if you are new to Real Recovery, we're so glad you joined the program. There are stories of recovery from addictions of all kinds, with Jesus Christ as the answer. And I know everyone is looking for Jesus, whether you know it or not. So if you are in a place where you're struggling with addiction, you're struggling with restlessness, and your heart is just in chaos, tonight is going to be a great story that will encourage you and give you hope. And especially if you are without hope, this is going to be a great program. So don't go anywhere. We'll take a break. You're listening once again to Real Recovery with Bill and George, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Recovery after quite a snappy opening. That was a pretty snappy opening we had, George.
Yeah, I'm surprised we broke away from it. I thought we would keep going.
Yeah, well, oftentimes we get on a roll and we never bring our guest on because things are going so well.
Yeah, well, today we're going to bring him on.
Today we're going to bring our guest on, and we're looking forward to hearing his story. More importantly, what God has done in him and his story through Christ. Our guest is Chris. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We're so interested in hearing about young Chris, growing up Chris. Give us a little sketch as to what life was like when you were growing up.
Well, growing up was very hard for me. I grew up without really my father. You know, he was very abusive, lived in an abusive home. So it was really tough coming up. My parents divorced at the age of 5, the last horrific memory that I have with my dad before he come in is, him pointing a gun at me and my mom. And that was the break-it point. And so I moved away from there. I thought everything would be done and over with, but the abuse still continued with my parents. And so I just kind of really didn't fit in coming around school a lot. I was really trying to search, for my purpose in life even then. And, I did not really grow up in church. I didn't know who God was, but something inside of me I had something in there, and I could never explain it because I would always pray. And so as going through and growing up, I found my identity, in sports. I was big with sports, but I also found it in drugs and partying. I was really good at that. And, and life just started out that way, and just going about my own way.
What sports did you play?
I played baseball. I was a center fielder, really enjoyed it, and I'm actually on softball team, play still yet.
Good, a good activity to stay sober.
Yeah.
So at what grade did you stop playing?
I didn't stop playing until I was done with school.
Good for you. But did the use in, getting away of that, when did you start using?
I started using at the age of 13. So
okay, so you were still playing.
I was still playing. I was drinking, smoking pot. Doing nothing hard. I was just doing what everybody else was doing, going to parties, and and that's just where I was. It was a fun time. It started out fun, but it definitely ended in disaster.
Did it hurt your baseball?
No, not really, because I didn't do enough of it to really have it. I mean, when my coach would find out, I'd get punished for it. I'd be the whole practice running from center field to home base to center field. So he always kept his thumb kind of on me, and it kept me from it, a lot of it, until I got later on in my teenage years. And
I'm guessing you were good enough that they wanted to keep you on the team so they didn't cut you. And so you had more ability than most guys, and you were special. Is that fair?
Well, I wouldn't say special, but I was a very driven person. I mean, I was always good. I enjoyed it. So, I mean, I had potential to be in college, to play college baseball. But, yeah, I mean, we're doing really well for the team. I was really a big asset to that. I always played every game, never sat on the bench. So, it was something that was enlightening. So they really tried to keep me going.
How were your grades?
My grades were not the best at times, but they were okay. I never got held back. I passed every grade. So, I mean, I did okay, but I wasn't doing to my full potential, nor did I really care at that time.
So what was higher, your batting average or your grade point average?
I would say my batting average.
Okay, good.
Chris, you're an all-in guy. So when you go into something, you go all in, don't you?
Yeah. It's all in or nothing for me.
Yeah. So, George, we've heard that before, haven't we?
Yeah, there's certain characteristics that are, pretty universal: defiant, oppositional, and all in. We don't have an off button. And if I like it, when can I do it again?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is a big part of your identity was a ball player. And then when you got kind of a dual life going, if you're a party guy too, when the baseball stopped, did the drug use escalate?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, it really did. When the things just kind of stopped, and and then I was going in and training with the Marine Corps. Also, I had all these plans and going through it, and it all, later on, it just came to an abrupt stop because I was also a fighter, and I ended up committing a crime. So right at the peak of my time of transforming into adulthood, I ended up actually stabbing a guy and going to prison.
Okay. We'll back up just a little. I can't wait to get that.
Sure.
When you say fighter, were you an MMA guy or a street guy?
Well, I started out street guy because, growing up, I was also picked on because I was really small. So, and I didn't like to get beat on. So I got really good at fighting, and then had a guy that came into my life that was, he did MMA. Well, his backyard, wasn't big at this time. I mean, Ken Shamrock was the one name that you always heard. And he seen I was fast, I was agile, I was strong. So we built up my strength, and he started training me in jiu-jitsu and taekwondo. And I got really good at it. And then I noticed that, well, after that point, people would leave me alone. And that's what kind of came on through it. But it was a bad way because then I used the people's fear to keep people away. And, so that way I didn't get hurt. Little did I know all this until I started getting recovery that, when you got to admit you're a 40-year-old kid, it's pretty hard.
So how much of that do you think was compensation from having your dad come in and point a gun at you and your mom that you're going to take care of yourself? And you were a smaller guy. You didn't like to get beat up. I've never liked it either, but it's happened a lot. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I'm not going to take this anymore. You're a good athlete. You get through school. Did you join the Marines, or were you just looking at it?
No, I went into an ROTC program, so I had a really good starting point to go in. I went in to train. It was called delayed entry. It was a program that we had, so therefore when I was going to be done graduating, I would have been able to jump right in and go full throttle with the Marine Corps, but then that did not happen. So then I got pushed out of that because the court system just wouldn't take the plea that we had. So, I had to go do time and stuff.
Was that from stabbing the guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So how long did you serve?
I didn't serve. I didn't get commissioned.
No, I mean
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
That had to be awful.
Yeah, it was an experience. I went in, I was honestly tell you, I was scared. I didn't know. I'm like, here we go, because I went to level 5 maximum security from right away, and and you're just a kid. I mean, I wasn't even 20 years old yet at that time, and but made it through and got moved to another facility, which is a fighter prison. It was called Thunderdome Gladiator School, and I just got really good at more aggressive, more fighting. It made me worse of a person than it did any good for me. So coming out of that.
George, have you heard about this before? Because I need to know more about this gladiator school. This is the first time I've heard of this.
I think you're a little old for that.
I get that. I'm not going myself personally.
Okay. No, I've never heard of it. I'm pretty interested as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is something. Is it designed to expedite your sentence? If you go through this program, you're going to have less time?
No. It's it was a level 3. It was between minimum security and maximum security. Why they call it's Boonville, Missouri. Why they call it Thunderdome is because they put no one in there over the age of 25. You're in there with kids from 17 to 25 years old, and it's just fight every single day.
What do you mean fight?
Well, that's what it is. I mean, you got nothing but a bunch of testosterone fuel kids in there, and everyone trying to prove themselves. So you can come out of commissary and they'll try to steal your commissary, get hit with whatever. So you have to fight, and it's either be thrown to the wolves or be a wolf is pretty much it. And seen some brutal stuff happen in there. But if you get that same way, you get that name for yourself. They know that you're not a guy that's going to back down, and you're going to just do whatever it takes, pretty much survival.
How long do you think George would last at Thunderdome? 5-10 minutes? Curious, maybe less than 10.
Maybe two.
There you go.
Two.
See, that's what I was thinking. I was being generous.
No,
5 to 10.
it was interesting. The reason I got sober is I didn't want to go to prison.
Yeah.
And we have a friend named Phil who's done the show that used to work at Salvation Army. And when I interviewed him, he said he had done some time. There's two kinds of people, George, sharks and fishes. Mm-hmm. And I'm a shark. And when Phil used to walk down the hall, the ocean would part. And I'm a fish.
So, yeah, I mean, in those experiences,
Wasn't that just awful?
It was. It really was. And, but, some good did come out of that, because when I was done with my prison stay, I was like, after that, I'm like, that's not a life I want to live. So I got to do something about this. And I come out, I was 23 years old, and I went and got my CDLs. So I went through school and became a truck driver. And within the first year, I started buying my own trucks, started running business, and did that for 12 years. And
were you doing any speed when you were doing that?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that was here and there. That's where my addiction really started taking off. But I prided myself I can control it because I took care of business, but there was times I would be up for days pulling loads just because I was chasing money.
So did you go all over the country?
Yeah, I've been in all 48 states.
See, I think that would be a cool job.
I do too.
You get the speed going. Were you smoking too? Get cigarettes and got the radio going and pedal to the metal and it's I
pretty
could
much.
see it.
I got a picture actually I can show you on the phone. I had I was one of probably the few that anybody would have out here that had like the outlaw trucks that would do close to 100 loaded. And I pulled all kinds of freight. I was a heavy hauler. Also pulled cattle at times. I mean, I just always went where money went. But it was it was not a life.
Isn't that kind of an alone life? I mean,
is.
Isn't it hard to have friends when you're always gone? And
yeah, it was. It's very long. I mean, I had a family. I was married at one time, and thought I was doing the most good, buying homes, taking care of that. But it was just a disaster. It was a toxic lifestyle, because that's just what I did. I chased money, took drugs to keep doing it, would drink here and there, but it just progressively got worse and worse. But I did that for 12 years until my accident. So yeah.
Interesting.
I think we're going to take a break, George, and when we come back, we'll find out.
Okay, Bill.
All right, George, we'll find out what the accident was. That's got my interest quite high right now. Chris is our guest. We're going to take a little break here. Listening to Real Recovery, Bill and George. Ryan, as always, is on the board making things happen. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Recovery, Bill and George, and we've got Chris in studio, and what a cliffhanger that was, George. We want to break because we're going to hear now about the accident. We don't know what it is, but Chris, share it with us.
So about 6 years ago, I was picked up a load from Organic Valley. That's who I was contracted with, and just got fuel, just got coffee, of course, and just south of Rockford, Illinois, I was loaded with 39,620 pounds of corn, just trying to get to South Carolina to unload. And I spilled my coffee. And I just went down, looked, seen I had enough distance. There was 2 trucks in front of me and a van beside me, but the right lane was about to close in construction. And I hurried up, put the lid back on, and like I said, it must have been God that got this van ahead of all 3 of these trucks, because it wouldn't have, I don't think it would ever had time to close the gap in that, but it did. And I look up, and as I got the lid back on, I put my eyes back on the road, and I'm right there at 2 stop trucks. It was stop traffic right as it comes in. And luckily, because if it had been a flatbed or a box truck, a regular one, I would not be here speaking with you today, because I didn't even get a chance to touch a brake. And it was what they call a double drop or a low boy, and the end of that trailer sits even with the frame of my truck between the cab and the frame. And when it come up, I was up enough to look and just go for a ride, and it hit. It's like explosions going off, and there 3 big shoves like a train derailment laid my trailer on the side of a bridge. And it happened around 1:45 p.m., and I watched the last piece of my truck be carried away at 11 p.m. that night, just sitting in shock. And there was my axles on the back of the truck were crossed in the left lane. And, that's when my whole life changed. So,
Did you get a ticket?
they went through because the only ticket I got was a failure to maintain control of my vehicle.
Okay.
So yeah, I got a ticket for that.
And none of you guys were hurt?
Nobody. Everybody walked away from it pretty much. I mean, I should have went to the hospital because I had like these huge goose eggs all over my head. You know, I'm pretty sure there was some damage comes there, but psychologically it broke me. I mean, there was something. I didn't come back okay from that accident. I really didn't. It was like enough. That just in life, that was just enough for me, and I just fell down. I just and couldn't get back up, and that's when I turned into my addiction a lot more.
Did you drive again?
No, I did not.
Okay. So you have a little PTSD from that.
Yeah.
I don't see how you couldn't. So you coped with that by using?
Yeah, I couldn't sleep, and I was already still in drugs and alcohol before this. It was getting pretty bad, and so the writing was on the wall. This just didn't happen gradually, but I really got more into drinking because I could sleep. I could deal with it because I couldn't sleep after that, and then I ended up actually getting OWI, my first one. Was able to get through that a little bit, and then I got 2, so I have 2 on my record, and it just cost me my license. It cost me my career, and then I was struggling trying to find my place back in that. But the more I struggled, the more I numbed out and just kept turning into the addiction a lot more, and it brought me to where I'm at today.
So you don't have a driver's license even for a car?
Oh, no, I have a driver's license for a car now. I can't get my CDL.
Back then, though?
No, back then they took it. I got through that. I have a driver's license today, but I can't get my CDL back until 2027.
Okay. So it's pretty humbling, isn't it, to not have, it happened to me.
Yeah.
To kind of get rides and walk around. And I drove without a license for a while. That was 40 years ago. The statute's over. I look back on that. I wasn't sober and made a lot of sense. But it's starting to humble you, right?
Oh, yes.
You have this big tragic event, and God's using it the whole time, and you're kind of lost. And we go to what works, and that's to get high, escape, numb me out, I can sleep. What changed it?
Well, what really changed it was it just kept going downhill, and I know I didn't want to live anymore. I had no hope. At the 6 years of my addiction, the last thing that I had was I was with a toxic relationship for like 3 years. That was on off again, but there was a kid that was put in my life. And now, not to mention early on, I lost my son. My son passed away. So, I had that attachment to him so strong in loyalty, but it just was not a good thing. And I was in addiction, and just, it just doesn't work when you're an addict to be in a relationship. It's not healthy. So, but I kept going back. We kept trying for 3 years. And then the last part is, I got sober for like 4 months. I got saved. So I came to Christ, by some good people, which are beside me today.
How'd that happen?
Well, I actually ended up homeless. She kicked me out. I had no place to go. Now this is the kicker. I ended up at the Salvation Army in La Crosse in a homeless shelter. And I remember I reached out on Facebook and was like, is there any pastor to talk to me? Because I hit my knees. I'm like, God, do you even love me? And
wow.
At that moment, everybody blew up, and it Horizons Christian Fellowship. So it was Matt Schroeder, Pastor Matt, that I was able to reach to. And sitting in a coffee shop in a back corner, he brought me to Christ, and I gave my life over to him. And then next thing you know, one of my best friends, Joshua, he comes up next to me, and really good man of God, really strong in his faith, started discipling me and trying to get me away from the relationship and trying to put a cap on that to do better in my life. And I went and stayed with Nick and Marilyn Mansour, which is basically, if you want to call it, they're my spiritual family, or they're my Christian mom and dad, is the way I looked at it, because they loved on me so much, invited me in their home to live with them. They were business owners, sold their business, and it was incredible how much love and support they showed me, you know, when I didn't even love myself. I mean, I just was still lost in that. But the thing is I just wasn't ready. And then when she started coming back, because I was doing good, I was getting sober, then she we both worked together, and I wanted to go back. So I went back to a toxic home, toxic environment, and within 1 week, it took 2 weeks actually, within 1 week, everything turned. I relapsed, and everything that was not supposed to happen happened, and, you know, and then I just went down. I just went completely down and was done at that point, because then that was gone, because she found someone else right away, and it destroyed me. And then I just went really hard, and my addiction started numbing.
Were you on the street?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was in the summer.
Yeah, it was in the summer. Yeah,
okay, good. So how did you turn that around?
Desperation and brokenness. You know?
How did God turn that around?
Okay, so Salvation Army ARC in Minneapolis was offered to me a year prior, and Dean, actually, from Next Chapter in La Crosse, he's like, well, you want to go now? And I'm like, well, let me tell my mom bye. And he's like, you're going to go have another date with your addiction. And how right he was, because that's what I did. I ran so hard.
Yeah, but you probably didn't need 6 months, right? I mean,
No.
you know, let's do a spin dry in a month or...
Yeah.
But it's amazing how, and the Blue Recovery book talks about, we're beaten into a state of reasonableness. I know you know my friend Glenn.
Yeah.
And that seems like a pretty good deal now, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm willing.
willing. And it's what it was. It was surrendering for me. And that's something that is not in me, is surrendering. But God got me to a place of surrenderance. And so when I ran from it, I got back, and I lost a whole bunch of weight. I mean, I was unhealthy. I was not good. Emiliano, actually, who's here with me, he remembers what I looked like and seen it, and other people have. And I didn't. And so I got back, and my caseworker from La Crosse County actually is like, well, stay right where you are, because, you know, it was hard to get a hold of me. These people cared about me. So he got there, he got a hold of Dean, and Dean got Dean on the phone. He's like, well, ask him if he's ready to go to the ARC. And he looked at me and says, are you ready? I said, I'm ready. He's like, right now. I just had my backpack over, and I got in the car. I didn't even tell my mom. I didn't tell nobody. I just got in the car. I came all the way to Minneapolis. I didn't call her until I was like, just let my mom know I was okay. I hit Minneapolis. It's like, Mom, I'm okay. I'm going in treatment. And she was the happiest she could ever be for that.
Mm-hmm. So that is the start of another new chapter, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And what a wonderful chapter, because I'd have missed all this. I was ready. I was done. I mean, as far as I was concerned, I didn't want to live past that day. I just really did not. And I knew that because of my faith, I would, you know, whichever, I would go to heaven. I mean, I'm sure there's some consequence, but I was just broken and lost, and just didn't think there was nothing left for me here on earth. And I hated who I was. I literally did. I didn't like who I was looking at in the mirror. And every time I looked at him, because I was morally wrong, everything just upside down. And that's what it was. It was just, and I was just broken to the point of, I don't think you could have gotten broken any more than what I was. And, you know, so I came in, didn't know how I was going to make it 6 months, let alone a day in this place. And I just prayed for endurance and strength, and God gave me that. And He placed all you guys, and listening to everyone's testimony that came there, listening to you every Friday, Bill, you know, was very much an encouragement, you know, and it matters.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you've been doing that a long time. And, you know, the one thing it shows is a guy like Bill cares enough to go down there every week. He's not getting paid, and I know that carries a lot of weight with people when I was working there, so good for you.
Yeah.
Why are you smiling at me?
Well, because you keep saying I don't get paid, so you're out of touch.
I never did. Actually, that's not true. Yeah, but it does mean a lot to people. What's really interesting to me is how you talk. I've gone down and talked. Some people can't hear you. And I think it's the Holy Spirit, Bill, that pierces somebody's heart, that convicts them, and then gives them hope at the same time that only the Holy Spirit could do. I hope for you that you always remember how you felt when you were lost.
Oh,
and for me, and I think everybody else in recovery, we need to visit that occasionally. And I encourage you to do a great job telling your story, to tell your story at least once a year so you hear it.
yeah.
And, we come in willing to do whatever it takes. And then after we start feeling better, I mean, you look great, new clothes, you start eating, you're working out.
Yeah.
You start negotiating, like, I don't need to do that. And you haven't done that yet, but that's kind of our nature, is I don't need to do that. So keep in touch with that. Isn't it great what the Salvation Army does? They offer so much hope in Christ.
Yeah, Chris's story so far is without a period. There is a period without hope, and that's, to me, one of the saddest places ever when someone doesn't have hope, because that's what we have in Christ is hope. All right, we're going to take a little break and come back. Lots more with Chris, our in-studio guest. You're listening to Real Recovery. Bill and George, we'll be right back. We're back with Chris, our special guest today. You're listening to Real Recovery with Bill and George. George, this is quite a story.
It is. And as you said at the beginning of the program, it's always God's story in us. But I never get tired of hearing it, because anytime anybody gets saved and sober, either or both, it's a miracle. And it really helps all of us to hear it. So thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. It's my pleasure, but it's all glory to God. I'm just a willing vessel, and I try to stay out of my own way with that, because, it's not me. I don't want anyone to look at me, and say, it's I have anything to do with it, because I don't. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with none of this. He set everything up perfectly, and, he put great people in my life, like Salvation Army, and guys that are around me today, and my sponsors, and, that are there, and they see that, and I get to thank him. It's the thing is I don't have to do anything. I get to do it now. I get to be in recovery. I get to go to meetings. I get to participate, and I get to share the glory and love of God, which is the main thing of the whole thing. He took all this tragic stuff that has happened, and my addiction, and, the brokenness and the horrible things that I've done, and he's turned them around and used them for his glory, for his way, and to point the way towards him. Because, and if I can do that, anybody can. All you got to do is just step and just be in a place of surrendering. And that's not easy. It's not. But if you do it in obedience, man, he'll just take you in places you can never imagine.
I think I've read about that in the Bible.
I think you have.
I think I have too.
Well, you had the opportunity to do it too, and we still do every day. One of the things that's interesting me, Bill, I'm working with a couple guys whose dads died when they were 5 and 6. One of suicide, and the other guy of an illness. And they're in their early 30s, and they're doing really well. And I asked him, how did you turn that around? And there seems to be a gift, what the psychologists call resiliency. People not going to let that define them. Mm-hmm. And you have that. The willingness to let God help you change. And it's really inspirational. I had a pretty easy life. And when I look at these guys and see what God's doing for them, that with man, things aren't possible, but all things are possible with God. And when you start looking for that and you start sharing your story and working with guys, that's the best part of your walk, I think. How are you going to maintain what you're doing?
Well, it's pretty incredible where God has placed me, because I've got one of the best. I mean, I've worked with sponsors before, but I got one of the best sponsors that's beside me. And, Mick has just been a great guy. Lance, all the guys I got through, Emiliano. But he's placed me at a turning point in my life, because I'm so passionate about my love for Christ and what he's done. Emiliano's invited me to be a leader at Celebrate Recovery. I'm pursuing officership at Salvation Army, so I'm already in ministry work of doing that and staying, close to my faith. And the thing is go to meetings. There's a reason why they have the saying, meeting makers make it. And I know already in my spirit, my heart, I have to do this for the rest of my life in order to stay recovered and stay close to the Salvation Army and things that have gotten me to the 6 months. Because the 6 months part, it was just a good start. It's just scratch the surface, I mean, this is not a one and done thing. And, and it's like you said, I look back on where I was when I first came in, and that is what keeps me going each and every day, because I do not ever want to be back there again. And I know when we relapse, because I've done it, it gets worse. It doesn't get easier, and it doesn't change. It doesn't change at all.
I've never met anybody who had a year or two of sobriety that wish they hadn't done it. And I've never met anybody who had a year or two or more of sobriety that went back out where it worked. And it's funny how the mind plays tricks on you. I heard a pastor say a few weeks ago, there's 3 voices in your head. And I thought, I got a lot more in mine. But there's God, there's you, and there's the devil. And I'd never heard that before. And I thought, yeah, it's pretty simplistic, but it's true that the accuser of the brethren can be pretty sneaky. And it comes up occasionally that having a drink or getting high would be a good idea. And that's not from God.
No, anything that goes against what his word says or what's in there, because he'll give you such a profound peace in your heart about something. And that's the peace of Christ that he gives you to walk faithfully in, because then you can walk boldly and know it's well, even though it may be hard in life or anything like that. And that's something I found. That's I didn't find it. These ones give it to me, but I know how to tune in and listen to that. And it's not always easy, but I know it's for the best of my life, because, we're supposed to live by faith, not by sight. And I just keep continuing going through that and do the right next best thing that I can do. And when I do fail, I may condemn me. The devil is going to condemn me, but Jesus never condemns me.
Right.
And I'm able to repent and just get back up and keep going strong, because I know I've got a long way to go. There's still so much that's uncovered and so much to learn. So I stay close to the people that have all this recovery, because they got something I want if we're being transactional. And that's what I stick close to. Totally.
We had a guest on here many years ago, Dr. Glenn Pickering, and talk about step 10 when we're wrong. We confess it, continue to take our personal inventory. We promptly admit it. And he said, when you're wrong, it doesn't mean you're bad. It means you're wrong. I've been sober a long time before I heard that. And that's really been helpful, because what we do when we're wrong? We minimize it, we justify it, we rationalize it. Or mine, I always blame somebody else, right?
Yeah, it's the easy way.
And I think the quicker you can get to confess it, the better you're going to feel, and the better you'll do.
Right. Well, the only way that I found in order to change is being really self-aware and being honest. I clung to the principles behind the first step is honesty and I realized that I can't do this alone. And I realized that it takes all of us together as a community to lift and support each other up and help each other to continue to go, because the devil and your addiction wants you to isolate. He wants you by yourself. And that's where he's going to constantly try to take you. And I God bless and thank for the administrations at Salvation Army. Tom and Trudy are some of the best people that I've met, because I got to see Tom especially, hear his story and how impactful that was. But we went to a baseball game, watched Twins play, and I watched him how he loved on us and just kind of just done with it and just spared no expense at our thing being there in the box and just enjoyed it with us. I got to see the real Tom and not the guy business or being in there, and and I'm like, wow, and they keep letting people come back. They'll open their doors, they open arms, and they don't judge you when you come back. They want you to be there because they care about you, and that's the one reason that they were there and so strong.
So if you're a soldier now,
I'm just about to be into it. I go to Milwaukee to get inaugurated by the general.
Oh, great. And then you will be serving God and other people. And it's amazing how you go into a place to get sober, and what God provides for you is the rest of your life, what you can use, whether you're in the Army or not, to help people. And I think the biggest thing that helps recovering addicts is to get outside ourselves. The Big Blue Book says extensive work with other alcoholics is the best way to stay sober. And I always thought, because you see how bad it is, but really what happened is I love working with guys. Yeah. And we're always selfish, self-centered, and egocentric when we're using. And that's a miracle. And if you have that, that's great. Just keep it and keep adding to it.
Most definitely, and that's one of the things when I actually started reading the book, The Alcoholics Anonymous, and the Big Book, a book that was published in 1935 that talked all about me. And one of the keys I got from, look at the front cover, you self-diagnosed. But you go into it, and one of the biggest keys I found was service work. That was one of the keys that keeps you sober, is working with others. And I just hung on to that.
I love it.
Chris, do you think that there is issues still from your past unresolved sorrow that you still need to address going forward?
Oh, most definitely. I mean,
Okay.
that doesn't go away just overnight. I mean, there's still some deeply rooted stuff that comes up, and when I'm aware of it, I'm able to change it, still talk about it. I still go through it, but,
Yeah.
and I'm able to pray about it and continue. I'm like, one thing is I find my identity in Christ more now today, but I still struggle with that self-identity thing, and that was the biggest part of my life. I struggled with identity. It wasn't drugs and alcohol. It was with identity and what my purpose was, and I always leaned into the things, and like I said, all or nothing. So I did the best, and I just hyper-vigilantly focused on that and driven. I mean, nothing was going to stop me to achieve it, and that's where it stopped me from knowing the word surrender, because I never surrendered. I just kept going.
I have Isaiah 61 has come to mind as you were telling your story. And Isaiah 61:1 says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness." Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
Yeah, so I do pray that the Sovereign Lord will help bind up the brokenhearted, because that's a lot of sorrow.
Yes.
I mean, a 5-year-old kid, when you get into self-defense and you want to be a tough guy, was any part of that because you wanted to be protecting your mother?
Yeah, most definitely.
You wanted to be the tough guy in the family, then, didn't you? The one that protects.
Yeah, I did. I didn't want to be abused anymore. I didn't want to be hurt. And, when it come up, and one thing is I actually made a mistake in my life, and I will tell anybody this, no matter who your parents are, don't hit them. At the age of 31, me and my dad got into a real big fight, and my dad was a big guy, the only man I was ever terrified, and I actually hit him and knocked him down, and he woke up with tears. First time I seen my dad, kind of cry, and God rest his soul now today. But, I thought that would solve everything, because my hand felt like a 9-pound hammer. But after I did it, I regretted every moment of it. It put a tear in my heart and everything when I saw my father there. The one thing I could tell anyone is why it's written in the Bible, honor thy mother and thy father. No matter, it didn't say if they're good, they're bad, who they are. It says honor them. And, and I would say this to anybody now. It's like, your mom and dad's lived without you. You haven't lived a day without them. And no matter what, you want to keep it. Don't try to make that mistake and think it's going to fix it, because it's not. It makes it worse.
Really good. So any concluding thoughts, Chris? Any words of encouragement for someone who tuned in tonight who might still be in the grips of addiction? Yeah,
the biggest thing is like to talk about is find a place to where you can surrender it all to God, and find a place to get help, because there is a lot of help out there, and there's a lot of people out here that are so willing to help you and be beside you, and that will honestly love you. And it's one thing, take it one day at a time. Don't try to go so fast, because, you're going to miss something, and don't be so, Don't just fight it. Just don't fight the process anymore. There's no need to. Go with the process and listen to the ones that have made it, the ones that's got years of recovery in them. They know what they're talking about, and they're there to help you. And you can really, with God in recovery, can right-size your life, and you have no idea what God can place you and do with you and where he can take you. But I can promise you, you will never regret it, and it's a joy to be there. It just takes time, and it just takes a little faith and work on your part.
Those are words from the Holy Spirit. I don't think that's you talking, Chris.
No, that's not me.
No, I can sense that. You've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for taking time to share your story. I know you're going to be an encouragement to a lot of people, including George and I today.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
really
you for having me.
Yeah, and George, that wraps up yet another award-winning episode of Real Recovery. They're talking about buying us yet another trophy case for the awards.
They're so nice to us.
I know they are. They're the best.
Really?
Oh, I know. Yeah. All right. We should end on a more honest note. So thank you for listening and tuning in and supporting Faith Radio. We've loved having you.
I meant it.
Okay. Well, there you go. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Programming like this is made available through your support. Information available at myfaithradio.com.